Figure Resource, your online home. Action Figure Resource.
This is a website and figure review for Action Figure Resource. The site is Mattycollector.com, which is Mattel's mail order outlet for limited run collector focused specialized action figures. Through it they sell DC Universe, WWE Wrestling, Ghostbusters and their own Masters of the Universe Classics line. Those of you in your 30s will remember the original series from 1982, which had its origins tied up in the Schwarzenegger Conan film. As it turns out, the idea had been laid out several years before the film emerged, and He-Man is a character influenced by Robert E. Howard's Cimmerian, but not directly based on him. The line was hugely successful thanks to the marketing campaign and lengthy animated series. Probably my first toys were He-Man figures, and I loved them all. Even the Skeletor that I twisted the waist off so many times that his legs fell off. One of the best aspects about the original line from a business standpoint was the ease of which new characters could be created by the manufacturers by mixing and matching different legs, arms, heads, weapons and armour to fit new concept art and characters. Almost all of them with their own unique features such as trap jaws, interchangeable arm tools, Mossman's flocking and of course Stinkor's smell. Batman writer Paul Dini was on the team that made the cartoon and has talked about being shown pre-rendered characters and told to write them backstories while the figures were in production to achieve a factory procession of must-have new heroes and villains. The show spun off into She-Ra, which attempted to do the same thing, only pitched at girls. By 1986 both the MOTU and She-Ra cartoons had run their course, but the concept was reimagined and brought back as the new adventures of He-Man barely 4 years later in 1990, again with its own less successful, less versatile toy line. 12 years later in 2002 a new Masters toy line tied in with the show that went back to the imagery and themes of the original met with moderate success, but again failed to hit the highs of the 82 series, possibly due this time to massive competition from other cartoons and their respective toys, and far too many He-Man figures with different costumes and paint schemes. Then in 2008 Mattel started this website, Mattycollector.com, kicking off with a long-awaited first rendition of King Grayskull, and soon produced the first version of a classic He-Man figure that I am reviewing today. These MOTU classics are sculpted by the Four Horsemen, who were on board for the 2002 reboot, but dialed back the McFarlane detail here to produce something simpler yet more complex, and pitched squarely at the adult collecting market. Modelled on the 82 originals but made with contemporary methods for discerning and nostalgic collectors and priced at a hefty $20 plus delivery, these were and are the ultimate He-Man figures for those of us with the fondest memories of the basic, chunky early line. The site itself is very easy to use. They have a library of remade figures spanning virtually the whole original line that have been issued and run their course, none of which you can buy new, but it forms a visual checklist for scouring the secondary market. However, if you thought $20 was steep, then what you'll pay on eBay for the figures that are no longer in production may blow your mind, with prices reaching the hundreds for rarities like Shadow Weaver or first edition He-Man and Skeletor. It is a buyer's market writ large, and a sound investment for those that got in on the ground floor. Mattel were able to produce these, but for a far smaller niche market than the 2002 line, which was in every toy shop, and ended up costing them quite a lot of money in unbought shelf warmers. The torsos for most of them are the same, with 2 or 3 kinds of arms and legs and only new heads, paint schemes and armour required. This meant of course that many of the action features had to be sacrificed to keep costs down, so there's still no Mechaneck, although Man-E-Faces, Triclops, Cobra Khan and most of the others have made an appearance. Today Mattel have obliged those who missed the first runs by reissuing second editions of their most popular figures, so you can buy He-Man, Skeletor, She-Ra, Adora, Hordak, Man-at-Arms and even Battle Cat. It's a shrewd move since these are making crazy money on the secondary market, and Mattel gets to see new streams of revenue on those whilst keeping the editions distinct with slightly different builds, paint jobs and packaging for the purists. I've started with second edition He-Man here, and I really don't mince words when I say he's everything I've ever dreamed of in a reissue. His packaging is styled after Castle Grayskull and economically sized with a great display blister and colourful backing card, shipped in neat white protective collector boxes. The lineup of other available figures and character bio on the back are clear homage to the 80s cards. These are in the 6-inch scale, the same as Marvel Legends. His sculpt is chunky, faithfully rendering everything we remember. His paint job is bright and evocative, but not too complex, so that the illusion is maintained. His weapons are hefty again, with just enough detail. You get both the power sword and a half-sword version that combines with Skeletors in the same way as it did back in 1982. This was a hangover concept from before the cartoon that gave them half of the power of Grayskull each, that you as a fan can choose to either ignore or embrace. The shield, battle axe and removable body harness are also there, and the various weapons can be slung on He-Man's back. His furry boots and underpants are once again faithfully rendered, and his bracers are coloured orange rather than just that weird bracer-shaped arm skin. There are points of articulation at his waist, pelvis, knees, calves, ankles, shoulders, biceps, elbows, wrists, midriff and neck. And unlike many similarly scaled figures, he holds his position firmly with a steady centre of gravity. The overall feel is that the original figure grew taller and more articulated and lost that squatting stance and elastic band waist. Other figures in the line provide even more fan service, with Merman coming with 2 interchangeable heads based on his 82 and 02 appearances, 2 versions of Zodak to appease both different characters, and various figures based on the mini-comics and early abandoned concepts. My favourite is Wondar, the He-Man based on an oddball, brown-haired, gun-toting, black-armoured and legendary among collectors Wonder Bread mail-away promotion. He comes with a miniature loaf of bread, and I'm not joking. There's even Molar, the dentist who assaulted Skeletor on the TV show Robot Chicken. It's a breath of fresh air to see a company who really knows its fans and its products laughing over in-jokes and mistakes of the past. Hence the obviously Conan-inspired Vicor. Most of the She-Ra line and some of the new adventures of He-Man characters have been included as well, making this a discerning overview of the whole MOTU mythos. If you're a major Masters of the Universe fan, you'll already know all about this, but if you're just finding out what Mattel have done over the past few years, yet you have fond memories of the earlier toys, I urge you to commit the necessary funds to get hold of one of your favourites from what is currently available, and check out what pure joy in a figure feels like. And that's all for today. Be back for more soon from Action Figure Resource.
Action Figures Resource. ActionFiguresResource.com